All right, here we go. Another day in the shop. So here's my 2021 YZ450F. Today we're going to be doing the coolant system on it, putting on the C3 thermostat, heated bars, as well as the Selkirk Engine Armour, which has the integrated skid plate cooler. So a little bit of a heatsink rad in there. So the coolant has to run through there. It has to run through the bars, has to run through the thermostat, and of course through the stock rads. So there's a bit of work to do, and I'm going to walk you through how to do it. Alright, so we have two Selkirk systems for two different bikes. That's one system, that's another, that'll go in the C-can. Only got one bike right now. But let's get this thing open and see what we're dealing with. Oh, look at those details. Oh yeah. Alright, so here's what we got in the box. We got the main skid plate part. There's another panel, a couple of side panels here. We got hoses. This is that bottom cooler. Lines, rad braces, the C3, oh, upside down. We have the C3 kit. So this comes with the thermostat. This thing's a beauty. And then it comes with all the hoses needed as well. Step one is we're going to remove this guard, and then we're going to drain the coolant system. Remove guard, drain coolant. Now, this coolant is brand new, so you could drain it into a clean bucket and save it. I don't have any clean buckets, so this is how it's going to work. Into the old oil pail. Next step is we got to take this header off. The whole all the way around, so that we can get in here nicely. Just gives you more room to work. And then after that, we're gonna take off all these hoses. So with this header pipe, I loosened this off. This bolts out, and the two nuts that hold the head pipe are off as well. What you have to do is split these before you can take this out. You won't be able to just take this out with this bolted up. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. This one comes out nicely. And then this one has to go out the right side. So you're going to turn it upwards, twist it up, and then just takes a bit of wiggling and it'll come right out. So the first step we're going to do is install the new thermostat. So all that is taking this hose off, undoing this nut, and unplugging your temp sensor. Give it a bit of a wiggle. There's an O-ring in there, and they get pretty sticky from factory. You don't want to force it. You don't need to pry it. You just gotta wiggle it out and it'll come out. Now, instead of just putting this in right now, what I suggest doing is taking this sensor off, throwing it into your thermostat, into here. Now make sure you watch, because these two have different thread pitches. One will match up to the factory Yamaha piece, and the other one will match up to either a plug or the temperature gauge that I'll run up to my air box. So this is the Trail Tech temperature gauge from C3Powersports that I'm going to be running. I'll end up running it up through the bike and putting it just under my CR intake, which will be about here on the plastic. Lets you be able to see it at all times while riding. I recommend doing a little bit of thread tape. Now when you wrap this, make sure you wrap it the right way, so as you tighten, it's going to keep it flat. If you go the other way, as you tighten it, it'll unravel. I like to clear this stuff off the end so that it doesn't get washed into the water pump. And then it's ready to go in. So now the C3 thermostat's set up. Like I said, this one I use the thread tape. This one I don't, because it's got a copper washer and it does bury, and it buries flat, so it does its seal there. This one doesn't go all the way down. So thread tape is the ticket. Now it's ready to go on. Any of my rubber seals, I like to put a dab of grease just to keep them nice and lubed. So now it's ready to go in, and just same thing as the way out, just kind of work it in, and then it'll pop in, line up with the hole, and then it's ready to go. So we'll tighten this, and then this factory plug will just plug right in. Or my gauge line going up there, the Yamaha thermostat there, C3. I took this line off. Now I'm going to take the rest of the hoses off and start prepping. All the lines are off. So with the C3, you just have to take this bottom line off, the middle line off, and this top line off. This top cross line isn't going to be changed out. So just the 3 lines, nice and simple. So big thing with doing these coolant systems is pre-planning how you want your valves, how you want your lines, what you're gonna do. I'm just bolting up my bars. These are Renthal fat bars, 604 bend, that C3 drilled and tapped for me. So it has the coolant lines installed there. And now you got a little bit of excess, and with a front number plate you need to plan for turning how much excess you have. What I'll end up doing with this one, I think, will be running it kind of on an angle to over here. Kind of on an angle to there. And then it should lie nice and flat behind the number plate. So before we get into installing this, you have to install the back mount. The back mount goes right where this dog bone goes. It's right here. I just put it in loosely to start until I get this plate in, and I can line everything up from there. The next part is the front mount to it, which is this part. So this part is gonna mount right there. All right, so I kind of thinking about how to do this as I'm going, and I think the only way to do this properly so that I can get the bike off the center stand is I'm gonna remove the swing arm, and I'm gonna put this kit on. The reason why I didn't have it on earlier is because the kit doesn't have shocks, but it'll be enough weight and everything, and I'll be able to put a stand underneath the tunnel and then put a stand underneath the triple clamp somehow. I'll make it work. All right, so this is where we're at. I got a block under there. I got the tunnel on with the shock. Remember, there's no skid, so I got a motocross stand in there. I got no forks either because my forks are shipped off. Otherwise I could run my front end with my wheel kit, but I don't have forks, so it's a bit difficult. Either way, bolt to this plate, into this plate, and start fitting these coolant lines. So with that back bracket mounted, I got these bolts bolted up, those bolts bolted up. Now I can tighten these bolts right here, and I'll finish tightening these bolts up here. So with the Selkirk system and the C3 system, using 2 different systems, they have ways of doing their coolant routing. It kind of involves a lot of extra parts, and it involves some cutting of some coolant lines, and I have my own way that I want to do. We're going to take some parts out of these. We're going to use the C3 lines. We're going to use the Selkirk skid plate heat exchanger, and hopefully I can explain it well enough so you can follow along, and I'll show you what I'm doing. First step, if you come in close, is I'm gonna Teflon tape this fitting and put a hose clamp here. It's going up through this hose. It goes through here, comes out here in front of the rad, down into its clamps, down into the heat exchange. And then the other side's coming up to here, where I'm gonna put this fitting. But I'll put that fitting in to the C3 hose. C3 hose up to my C3 valve, which I'll be able to open, close, do bar heat. And then the bars go through. It'll go to this C3 line, and this C3 line runs down the side and right into its return line. Update. So as we're putting this on, if you have foot peg stuff, brake stuff to do, make sure you do that first. So we got to do this rear brake cable and bleed. We got the foot pegs on, these C3 backcountry foot pegs. Coolant system's all done, just not filled. Starting to put this front plate on, which is 4 bolts. Bar setup, we'll be starting to do that. Got the throttle on with the tube cut so we can put the mountain bars. Here's this side, loosely fit on. I don't have a subframe right now, so I'm waiting for the subframe, but all these are bolted up. And probably end up getting some foam like this. This is a open cell coarse foam that should be able to take up a lot of that room and keep snow out of there. Alright, so here we go. Like I said, the coolant stuff's all done. Selkirk body armor's all wrapped up. Fits really nice. Got the fender cut because you need it cut for how far this sticks out. Got the bulletproof designs, rad braces in there. I'll have some JYTR rad braces going from here to there. Bars are starting to come along. Clutch levers on. I'm gonna do the C3 bark busters right now with the C3 bar mounts. Those will go there, and slowly get that going. Hey. Oh, that's gonna be down there. That'll allow us to get the bark buster around. This is still loose. Some of the other parts we're gonna be putting on this one include an engine hour meter, the Vortex box. Here is our rad braces. This is the battery I run, 12 volt. It is a lithium ion, but this thing works really good all winter long. It's super strong. It's actually a Yamaha accessory. And then from C3, we put these cords on to the battery so that you have a boost plug. That's it for everything I got pulled out right now. There's still a lot more parts to go on it. CR intake, RP racing pipe, lots of others. I can't think of them all right now. But as parts come in, I'm gonna be doing updates. So, gonna get back at her now. Well, there's the wrap up for the install of the Selkirk engine armor, the C3 thermostat, as well as the C3 hoses, my Renthal bars by C3, and basically how I custom routed it. Hopefully this helps you guys. If it does, leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I'll try to do more of these videos for you as I build these bikes. Really loving how this bar setup turned out. And then I integrated this valve in here. Actually cut it through the Renthal bar pad. Worked out good. Stoked.